G'day, Troy Dean here, and I'm with my good friend here, Justin Ferriman. Hey, Justin, how you doing?
Good, Troy. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Hey, for those that don't know, just give us a bit of background about who you are and what your history is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm the co-founder of Learndash, which is a learning management system that's built upon WordPress. And my background and my history all comes from the e-learning space and learning management systems in general. Prior to Learndash, I was doing consulting for Fortune 500 companies and setting up their LMSs, creating their e-learning programs, creating e-learning, rolling them out, and then all the fun measurements and details after we do that to test effectiveness and things of that nature.
And we met in Chicago a couple of years ago, and those that know, I'm very passionate about online courses and online learning as well. And we were talking recently about why most online courses are a horrible experience, frankly, and why, particularly why students don't complete online courses. In fact, I think this conversation was prompted because I heard Seth Godin talk on the Tim Ferriss podcast, and I wrote a blog article, and Seth came over and left a comment, and then you and I started a conversation on email. I'm like, you know what, we should jump on and record this chat because there's some real insights here. So why don't you share with us what you've, and from your consulting days of selling learning management systems to large enterprise, what are some of the problems that you've recognized over the years in online learning environments? Like why are students just disengaging and not completing online courses?
It's a great question. I think it goes back to the history of e-learning. Now, you maybe have taken a course at a university or just for work or, whatever it may be. And maybe people watching this have at their work. And a lot of times in the early phases of e-learning, it was putting out content on a screen. It was essentially like looking at a PowerPoint slide, except that it was being recorded, that you watched it. And, a lot of people, that wasn't speaking to them. They would get bored after a couple slides. If it wasn't put together well, there's no videos or anything kind of engaging to that level. They were just clicking next, and not really absorbing that material. And then they get to the final quiz and try to game the quiz. They would retake it, and then say, okay, I've completed it. And the early learning management systems, that was usually all they were looking for. All they were recording was, were you in the course? Did you take it? And did you complete it? But it didn't really measure learning and the effectiveness of the course, the course presentation and how the learner was engaging with that material and then taking that material and leveraging it in their day-to-day work or whatever it is that they were taught. So, I think because of that pattern early on, people just became disenchanted with e-learning. It was kind of a roll your eyes at it a little bit because you're being told to take the course and then, you didn't really want to in the first place. And then it wasn't entertaining. All those things, combine the completion rates, can also, they'd be low, but they could also be misleading because they could just have, like I said, click next the whole way through just to complete it, tick the box and then move on. So, those are hurdles that we're still actively trying to overcome today. And I think we're doing a pretty good job now, but it's always been something haunting e-learning.
And this isn't a small problem either because e-learning, online learning is massive. It's a huge market, yeah?
Oh, it's enormous. I think, here in the United States, there was a time where people would scoff a little bit at e-learning or maybe getting a degree from a university strictly online or distance learning or online courses. And that's changed. There are commercials all the time here in the U.S. For universities advertising their degree programs. That's because distance learning, online courses, that way of going through course content is becoming the norm. In fact, it's, a lot of the students going through grade school, they all have some component of online learning, an LMS, and maybe for like a blended learning component. So they're doing their coursework in the classroom, at home, maybe on their phone, on their tablet. So they're very much used to this way of learning. And because of that, and because, we've had more time with e-learning technologies evolved, I think people are pretty used to it. And, it's pretty accessible in terms of creating courses now online that now people are seeing opportunities to, sell courses and maybe tap into that entrepreneurial spirit. I can't say that word ever. But, so that's why I think, it's more common today than ever.
And there are online learning platforms popping up on every street corner. It seems there's like the big ones that we know, like Udemy and Skillshare and Coursera. And then there's all these other little apps like Kajabi and Teachable popping up all the time, tapping into that, the kind of the entrepreneurs market of people that want to sell courses online. But we were talking off camera before that there's even some of those big platforms are struggling to get students through the completion rates. Yeah? And you were showing me some data that you've got around course completion rates. You want to share some of those insights with us?
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen here. Here we have Coursera, and you can see as there's more users enrolled in the courses for their popular courses, the completion rates start to go down. We're looking, even their peak completion rate here is 36%. And I think we can both agree that that's, if you compare that to a live course instruction, it's a little bit different. There's a lot of room for improvement, I guess. And that's significant because, one, students aren't learning the entire course content. Somewhere along the line, they're not engaged with the content anymore. They're just, it doesn't speak to them. They're not grasping the concepts. They're not motivated to move on. That's huge. Online courses, there's a lot of self-motivation. That's part of it. And so, universities or entrepreneurs, a lot of times they'll have offers at the end of the course. And in this case, only 36% of the people are saying, now that's an outlier here. So if we just go to something that's maybe more practical, let's see, this one is 12%. So, 12.5% of students going through get presented maybe with another course, another offering, or what have you. So entrepreneurs, of course, want to see that number higher because it means that they're selling more products or selling more courses. But just in the case of pure education, you want to have those completion rates higher for, think of a company training their employees. They need to have that make sure that their employees go through it all. So they learning what it is the company's trying to teach them.
I mean, I imagine if you were the principal of a secondary school here in Australia or anywhere in the US or anywhere in the Western world, really, and your completion, and you had like 36% of the students that enrolled in your school actually made it through to the end of year 12, the school would probably be shut down in a couple of years. I mean, that would just be completely unacceptable. I mean, what's happening to the other 64% of the students? They're just ending up out on the street. I mean, I think that's a terrible outcome for the institute who's selling the course. And I also think it's a terrible outcome for the student because the student just feels like it was a waste of their time and a waste of their money. They don't actually get the course completed. They don't feel like they're getting value for money, and they just end up feeling like they've been a little bit ripped off.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And, I think, though, in looking at this data here, there's one important thing to draw from it. And you may be thinking like, well, why would you do e-learning at all anyway if completion rates are so low? It's interesting, though, the pink dots here, that's the completion rates for when the courses are auto-grading. And auto-grading comes from an LMS. If you look down here at this teal color, I'm assuming it's teal on your screen, those are some of the lowest. The peer grading and auto and peer grading are really low. But when you get the system that is guiding users and grading users and giving them immediate feedback, and you interject that into the equation, the completion rates aren't great, but they go up. And so that just shows that, it's about fixing and tweaking the system, not, trashing it all together, because certainly there's benefits to e-learning.
Yeah. So and you've seen some results, obviously. I mean, you're in the LMS sales business. You come from selling LMS to enterprise. You're now selling LMS as a WordPress solution. What are some of the things that you've seen that work that help improve these completion rates and these engagement rates?
There's a few things. And first, I think, is making the learner feel like they're not alone. I mentioned it earlier. There's, a lot of people, it's a lot of self-motivation. When you go through a course, you have to want to sit down, go through the content. But the second, that you can foster a community, I think that is extremely valuable and important to the learner, because then like, hey, I'm not on this path by myself. I can bounce ideas off an instructor or off other people that are taking the course, similar to a live class, a live seminar, for example. That kind of motivation feeds on itself, really. I mean, you get other people that are cheering you along the way. You're more likely to complete it. The other things are more just rewards. As simple as points, badges. Simple rewards and punishment type motivation. Obviously not punishment, but giving somebody a little bit of motivation for completing a course. Now, in like, for example, the corporate world, that could be a reward of like a half day, giving an employee a half day if they complete X amount of hours total of online learning, and then you have the LMS that tracks that. So that would be another example for how you can increase those completion rates. Is, put a carrot at the end of there, certificates or some kind of reward to help push people along, and then let them know that they're not in it alone.
Yeah, I was just going to say the carrot and stick approach, but more carrot, less stick. Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly.
Around that community stuff, I mean, without getting into the technical details, we've found a couple of things that have worked. A leaderboard, so that the reason the leaderboards work is because instantly you can see that you're not alone, because you can see where you rank on the leaderboard. It breeds a little bit of healthy competition, and everyone suffers the fear of missing out. There's a carrot if you can structure it in a way that whoever's on top of the leaderboard at the end of the course or the end of the week wins a prize, and it's also it's something that's dynamic and it's constantly changing. If you can structure a leaderboard in a way that it's constantly moving, like throughout the day based on student engagement, then it's new information and it keeps people coming back to see where they're ranking. So that's one thing that we've definitely found works. I think touches on multiple of those touch points, like the community and that kind of carrot, dangling a bit of an incentive there. And I'm going to tell you, badges and certificates have been huge for us. Like, you cannot tell you the amount of people we have holding photos of their certificates printed out and putting those photos up in our Facebook group. It is incredible. It's like so trivial. When we first started using certificates, my wife said to me, "Really? Like, the certificate's a bit naff, isn't it?" And I went, "Sure, it's a bit of eye candy. We're not a registered training organisation, so it's just like it's a bit of fun. But I cannot tell you how much the students love printing out their certificate, because they feel like there's this sense of completion and this kind of what's the word? It's like satisfaction that they've actually completed the course."
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's funny you bring up certificates. We were just talking about Coursera, and for the longest time they were free. And then they were like, okay, we got to figure out how to make money off of this program. So what they did is they offered a certificate, and you could take the course, and if you wanted the certificate, you would pay for it. And probably by their standards, it wasn't a lot of money because they have so many users, and obviously a lot of investors to pay back. But I think it was over $1 million just from when they first put in. All they did was charge for a certificate at the end of the course, and they made like over $1 million without really having to do anything.
Wow.
That's motivation for them to get those completion rates up.
Absolutely. Hey man, thank you so much for spending some time with us and talking about learning management systems and e-learning and all the problems with it, and how we can hopefully improve completion rates and engagement. I really appreciate you taking some time and sharing your insights with us.
It's always a pleasure, Troy. I love doing this kind of thing, so it's always great to talk to you.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Keep in touch, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, take care.